I think low code will become $100 billion industry, and I want to go over why I think that is and how you can take advantage of it. Let's start with this. By 2026, Gartner predicts that about 75% of new applications will be built using low code technologies, which is a pretty crazy thing when you think about that 75% of software could be built using limited to no code. And I want to go over like why I actually believe that this is going to be true and why I believe that low code and no code in general will probably be one of the biggest industries we see in the next 10 years. So, when most people think of low code and no code, oftentimes I hear, isn't it like Wix or Squarespace or some of these really janky type editors? And the reality is that it did used to be like that, but we've come a long way since that with tools like Bubble, Retool, WeWeb, No Code Backend, Create with Play, Zapier, Superbase, just to name a few. But these tools, and check them all out, I've tagged them all here, so feel free to check them out on my Twitter. Um, these tools are leading the way for low code and no code, and they're completely changing the stereotype when it comes to low code and no code being some janky Wix type editor. And so what you can really do with these tools is pretty incredible. But what I think where I think we're racing towards right now is a tipping point because low code hasn't yet reached the scale and quality to take over traditional code. And that's because all the softwares out there right now, when you take a look at Bubble, that's like probably the biggest low code example for building web apps. They're still very generalized, meaning that they are good at many things, but not great at any one thing. And so what I think what we'll see pretty soon is a bunch of other no-code, low-code tools, which we've already been seeing, things like Retool and WeWeb and no-code backend and Create with Play. These tools are actually taking a more focused approach. And so it's going to allow people to be really specific on what they want to build and pick the right tools in order to do that. And so the tipping point for low code is going to be when the when scale and quality meets the speed and cost. So the advantages of traditional code being scale and quality meets the advantages of low code, no code with speed and cost, making low code a no-brainer for 90% of things. So this means a multi-layered low code approach will be the approach that most people take because you're no longer going to be stuck with a built in the box solution. You're going to be able to configure your tech stack just like you would be able to in a traditional tech stack with a front end and back end. But with low code, it's going to be, you're going to be able to choose a powerful front end engine. So this could be something like Bubble, this could be WeWeb, and then you're plugging this into a strong database and backend. So this could be something like Xano, which is coming out or is becoming big in the no-code world. But this can also be Supabase, which is powering a lot of companies that you probably know. And this is used on the general full stack applications. And so you can already tap into a lot of these backends with an existing front end or a low-code front end. So this really gives you all the benefits with low code with very limited downside. And what we're already seeing is that we're seeing Fortune 500s and SMBs starting to build with low code. This isn't just startups and founders looking to get an MVP out the ground. A company like OutSystems that's not very talked about very much in the mainstream, but this is a company that works purely with enterprises, and they pretty much help them build internal workflows and internal applications. They've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world, ranging from like a Mercedes to some of the biggest real estate companies to e-commerce, manufacturing, you name it. They've worked with them. And so these kind of companies aren't talked about much because they're kind of behind the scenes. But OutSystems is a beast of a company, I think doing over $100 million a year. And then you have tools like Create with Play, which is a super exciting tool that I recommend people check out. Basically what this is again, they went very specific on what problem they're solving, and what they decided to go after is that low code, no code struggles when it comes to building really nice native Apple, iOS, Swift apps. And so this is what Play does. They just make it easy to create a nice front end, a nice prototype when it comes to using iOS and Swift UI. And so you can build really, really polished really, really polished products made for iOS with pretty much no code. And so that's going to be super powerful as people start playing around with that more. And so what I'm basically here to say is that there is going to be a massive opportunity coming probably in the next 5 years to take advantage of some of these tools. And there's a few ways you can go about it. I think we're seeing a push in towards productization, which is obviously what I've taken my agency, Creme Digital. We have basically created a productized service around a full-on product team. And so we are building full products ranging from startup MVPs, but all the way up to enterprise Fortune 500 products. And we're building it in a productized subscription-based way. And so I think what we're going to see is we saw the design subscriptions. We saw like the super sides of the world. We saw the design pickles. These companies do hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and all they've done is productized a service which was design. And I think we're going to see that same thing become really popular around low code and no code, because it finally has broadened the barrier to entry, the barrier to actually come out with these competitive price points at a monthly model possible. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot more of people doing pretty much what I'm doing right now. And there's definitely a lot of opportunities to do such. And so where it used to take, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, now we give a really flexible kind of pricing model for people to build anything they want. It's totally flexible. It's totally up to them. And we have different options depending on what you're looking to get started with. And so that's just to give you an idea. I think that one, if you want to obviously build on one of these tools, I think that there's a massive opportunity right now to use some of these tools that are still early, but will probably catch a lot of traction. And two, I think there's an opportunity to create a productized agency around some of these tools and lead with the advantages, not necessarily the tools themselves. Yeah, so I'm super excited about what's going to come in the next probably 1 to 3 years. I think that the next 2 to 3 years probably are going to be really exciting for low code. I think it's finally hitting its stride. I think it's finally hitting a point where companies are seeing the value that it can bring, and it's finally becoming kind of a household name. And so I'm super excited to kind of dive more into some of these tools. If there are any tools in particular you want me to cover, let me know. But definitely keep an eye out for some of these tools that I've mentioned here. Feel free to give me a follow on Twitter if you want to see more stuff like this, and drop any comments. I'm very active in replying. So appreciate everybody, and I will be back I'll be back soon.